Hey guys, welcome to the laundry chat. My name is Molly, where we help each other sort out life's laundry. I am on my way to go get margaritas with my friend, which I'm really excited. It's perfect because it's actually a Monday, so I'm having margaritas on Margarita Monday. And I actually haven't had a margarita in a while since coming back from Texas. I feel like Texas is just, I had margaritas all the time, but I wanted to just have a little devotional car chat, coffee chat. I wish I had coffee because I haven't done one of these in a while, and there's one thing that's been on my mind, and I mentioned it actually in my last video of my October reset, October goals video, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit more, so let's do that. I do have a couple verses that I wanted to read, but before we get into that, I just wanted to, well, basically just tell you what I have been thinking of. It has been the topic of worrying. I don't know if you're like me, where you're just like a chronic worrier. You get stressed a lot. Stress gets like built up in your body and you overthink and worry. You know, maybe you're worried about your kids or your finances, or maybe you're worried about the future and what you're gonna do, where you're gonna move to, who you're gonna marry, even down to like little things. Like, I'm worried about getting everything done. I'm worried about work. I'm worried about like social things, like worried about like how people perceive you and all of that. One of the things that I've been worried about since we got our new house has been our house burning down. I've never owned a house before, and so it's not like I wasn't worried about apartments burning down, but it didn't really feel like it was my problem. And so every time we leave the house, I swear I'm gonna come back and our house is gonna be burnt to the ground. This has happened multiple times where AJ has had to turn around, or we both has had to turn around to check and see if I left my iron on, my curling iron, my, you know, sewing iron, the coffee pot, and it makes things awful. Like, I'll leave and like a half hour into driving, you know, to go shopping or something, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, did I remember to unplug that? And it'll ruin the whole mood of the whole trip. And every time we've come back, the house is not burned down. One of the times we came back, and it was actually after my brother's reception, came back and there was a smell in the house, and the coffee pot had been left on with like very little coffee left in it. So the bottom of the coffee pot was just completely like charred, you know, it was just like black and burnt. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, and I told him, I was like, I even thought about this when we left the house. I was like, did I leave the coffee pot on? And he was like, honestly, Molly, I would have rather had the house burned down and you not worry about it versus you worrying about it the whole time and then nothing happened. And I was like, that's interesting. I've been thinking about that for a little bit, because I feel like Jesus says something similar to this, which is like, worrying doesn't add anything to your life. Like, the worrying is worse than the actual outcome. Worrying over something and having it ruin the whole day and ruin how you feel is worse than your actual house burning down, in a sense, if that makes sense. I mean, I know that you know, it sounds extreme, but I really think that the fact that God talks so much about worrying means that it's a destructive thing for us to do. So one of those is actually a verse. Luke 12:26, it says, "Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest?" And I think the thing before that was, can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? You know, God, I like the fact that he like asks us, like, why are you worrying? Why are you worrying? Why are you worrying? And I found myself recently asking myself that, why am I worrying? And then the next thing I try to do, which I really love this verse too, it's Philippians 4:6. And it says, "Don't be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." And I had always heard that verse, but then I like this next part of it, which is, "And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Jesus Christ." I really love that. Like, that's so cool. We can trade our worrying for peace. Like, God will not only hear our worries, but he will replace it with something better. One of the things that I also have been struggling with is I've been struggling to just pray and talk to God in general. I saw this TikTok actually. It said, prayer isn't meant to be a burden to you. Prayer. I should just link the TikTok actually.
And I said to the Lord, why? Why have I slacked off my prayer life? You know what he said? Because these problems that you're in your life right now, you don't want to think about them. Out of sight, out of mind. So you don't even want to pray about them, because then you have to think about it. But then he said to me, son, I did not design prayer to put a burden on you. I designed prayer to take a burden off of you.
And I got so emotional about that because I feel like prayer has become kind of a task for me, or like hard for me to want to do because it feels like a burden, when really I've been burdened with all of these worries, all of the stress and all the stuff I'm carrying, and I'm not giving it to God, who can actually do something with it. By worrying, I'm not being productive. I'm not helping the situation. I'm actually making it worse. Another verse that I really like that feels like it ties in is James 1:6, and it says, "When you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind." Part of worrying comes through doubting that God is going to take care of you, doubting that God will provide or has things figured out. With my word of the year, which is stand, I don't want to be like a wave in the sea. I don't want to be tossed by the winds of worry. I want to be rock solid and standing on what his promises are for my life. And those promises are that he will take care of me, he will never leave me, he will always provide, and that he loves me. And if I believe that I'm his daughter, I need to believe that, you know, he's not going to leave me alone or abandon me. I don't need to worry about a thing because I'm in his house. I'm covered with his love. He has a plan for me, and I can't do anything, especially I can't worry my way out of like ruining that, if that makes sense. Worrying is when you're in the habit of doing it, you don't even realize you're doing it. All of a sudden, you've worked yourself up to tears. And it's all because you worried about things that you can't control and that you can't do anything about. And it never even crossed your mind once to pray about it, which has been me. Like, I'm talking about myself. I think for married people, it's hard because I also don't want to call it, like, talking to AJ about it good. Because I think sometimes I'll feel like, oh, well, like, I talked about it. I talked to AJ about it. But AJ isn't God, your husband isn't God, and it's not the same as prayer. Prayer is powerful, and I feel like over these past couple months, I've just lost sight of how powerful prayer is. Let this be a reminder to pray when you're worried, to bring it to God, because he cares for you. He cares about the things that you're worried about too. It's not like he thinks your worries are dumb. You know, I think that's like a good thing for me to remember, is that like the things I'm worried about aren't stupid. They're not, it's very valid to worry about the things that I'm worried about, that you're worried about. It just is more productive to pray about them than worry about them. One of the things that I've also been thinking of, I was listening to this one lady and she talks about a lot of like really great, like common sense kind of things. And she was saying that one of the ways that you can love your husband is by being happy.
Number 2. Men live to see the woman they love happy. That's it. That's all they want, which means if you're negative and a downer or complaining or moaning or nagging, you are sucking the life out of him. When you're happy and smiling and generating positive energy, you're emboldening him. And keep in mind, this isn't all just to accommodate him. This comes back to you, because you get the best of him, so that you're not frustrated with why is he not being this or why is he not being that. Very often it's because of what you're bringing to the table is sucking that out of him, and you have the power to lift it up.
And I've seen this in AJ, like when I'm not happy, when I'm down and depressed and just like, you know, feeling off, he is very concerned and like wants to fix it. And when I'm happy, I've seen him like, he seems at peace, you know, when I'm like doing good. Men are just geared that way, which I was like, that is so interesting. And it made me want to be happier for AJ. But obviously you can't like fake your way through that really for very long. When I worry less, I'm more happy, and not just happy, but joyful. And so I want to work on not worrying, not only for all the reasons I mentioned, but for our marriage. So I just want to be a better wife to AJ, and I want to love him well. And by worrying less, I can love him even better. So I should really go and get some margaritas. I'm so excited. I actually have a very exciting video coming. It should be next. I was hoping to get it out actually before this video, but it just will take a little bit of time. But subscribe to be sure that you don't miss the next video, because it's going to be really fun and cute, and I'm excited. But yeah, I gotta go. So I will see you guys in the next laundry chat.